Hello everyone, I'm Frank and welcome to Frank Puzzles, and this is today's easy level puzzle. Now take that easiness with a grain of salt because it's considered easy by the people on the Logic Masters Germany forum, and there's a lot of really smart people there. Today's puzzle is called Elegant Entanglement by Wook, and here are the rules. Standard Sudoku rules apply, which means fill every row, column, and box with the digits 1 through 9 without repeats. Also, adjacent cells cannot contain consecutive digits. And adjacent is basically digits that share an edge with each other. Because obviously, if you didn't have that, if it was diagonal too, then every center cell would not work. So adjacent cells, which are cells that share an edge together, cannot contain consecutive digits. Digits along a purple line must form a set of non-repeating consecutive digits in any order. So these are called Renban lines. So therefore, along this Renban line must be a set of consecutive digits. Same here. So as an example, if this were 1, this would have to have 2, 3, and 4 on it in some order, right? But we know because the only 4 cell or 4-digit set that contains 1 that is consecutive without repeats, again, is 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? If you try to make 1, 2, 3, 5, that's not consecutive because the 5 is not consecutive with the rest of the digits, or any of the digits really, but continuing at. I really need to find a better way of explaining Renban, I feel. I'm not sure how to explain it right. That makes it crystal clear. Like, you just get a sense of it eventually, but I don't know. Anyways, that's a Renban line. And then we have killer cages. Digits in killer cages cannot repeat and must sum to the value shown in the upper left corner of the cage. So these 3 digits must add up to 8, these 4 digits must add up to 27, and these 3 digits must add up to 22. And those are all the rules. If you'd like to play along, there's going to be a link in the description. And now, I'm going to get started. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing I see is you have 3 digits adding up to 8. Well, the thing is, it's either 125 or 134. If it's 125, the 1 and the 2 cannot be next to each other. So therefore, they can't be in either this cell, or they can't be in this cell. So therefore, this would be a 5, and you'd have to have a 1, 2 here. This 1, 2 would force a 3, 4 here, right? Because again, as I said, anytime you have a 1 on a Renban, it has to be accompanied by 2, 3, and 4 if it's 4 in length. So because of that, we know that if this is 1, 2, 5, it has to be 5 here with 1, 2 here, because 1 and 2 are consecutive. They cannot be adjacent to each other. Therefore, this becomes 1, 2, 1, 2, which forces this to be 3, 4, 3, 4. Now, the problem with... Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 5. Now, this could also be 1, 3, and 4. And if you have 1, 3, and 4, 3 and 4 cannot be adjacent to each other because they're consecutive. Therefore, this would be 3, 4, 3, 4, and this would be 1. Well, if you have 3, 4, 3, 4, you can have either 1, 2, 3, 4, which would mean this would be 1 and this is 2. You could have 2, 3, 4, 5. Either of these could be 2 or 5. Or it's 3, 4, 5, 6, in which case either of these could be 5 or 6. So those are the limitations there. This is very similar on the other side, right? You have 3 digits adding up to 22 as similar to how 3 digits adding up to 8 has 2 possible solutions. 3 digits adding up to 22 has 2 possible solutions. And it's very similar. It's basically sort of the inverse of the 8, right? Because if you take the least digits you could have three unique digits adding up to, that would be 6. And if you take the most that unique digits could add up to, that would be 24. You add 1 to the 6 and you subtract 1 to the 24, that gives you 7 and 23. And if you add 1 to the 7 and subtract 1 from the 23, that gives you 8 and 22. So you know that those those are similar in certain aspects. So because of that, we know this has to be 5 or 9. And then this has to be, what is the possibilities? 6, 7, 8, or 9, right? Then therefore these have to be correspondingly 4 through 8 here. And this has to be 4 through 9 here. We do know, anytime you have 5 of length renban, you know that it has to have a 5 on it, right? Because what are the consecutive sets that are 5 length? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and they all contain a 5. So we know 5 has to be one of these 5 digits. We also know 5 has to be one of these 5 digits. Well, this digit sees all of these digits, so it cannot be a 5 here, because one of them has to be 5. Similarly, this 5 sees all of these digits, so this one cannot be a 5. So, what are the possibilities then? This 4 digits adding up to 27 could be 3, 7, 8, 9. But if it were 3, 7, 8, and 9, the problem is 7, 8, and 9. 3 can only be one of these spaces, right? The problem is 7, 8, and 9 would have to be the other 3 spaces. And if that were the case, how does this work? Right? Because you can't have consecutive digits here. Well, that would mean, therefore, 8 could not be, or 7 or 9. Yeah, it's basically problematic if that's the case, if this is 3, 7, 8, 9. You would have 8, 7, and 9. 8 would have to be one of these 3, and it would have to be next to a 7 or 9 here. So 3, 7, 8, 9 does not work. You could have 4, 6, 8, 9. But can you ever have 5? Okay, so normally in normal killer, if you have 4 digits adding up to 27, the possibilities are 3, 7, 8, 9, 4, 6, 8, 9, or 5, 6, 7, 9. Those are the only possibilities, right? You try to have it with a 3, you have to have 7, 8, 9 with it. You have it with a 4, you can only have 6, 8, 9 with it. If you have it with a 5, you can only have 6, 7, 9 with it, right? Because that adds up to 22. The other one that would add up to 22 would have to be 5, 8, 9, and then you would have duplicate 5s there, so that's not allowed. And then if you try to have a 6 as the lowest number, so this is having 3, 4, or 5 as the lowest number. If you try to have 6 as the lowest number, 6, 7, 8, 9 adds up to 30. So therefore, you cannot have 6 or above be the lowest number. You have to have 3, 4, 5, and those are the only possibilities. Well, if you have 5, you have 5, 6, 7, 9 as the possibilities. So if, say, one of these were a 9, whereas, say, this was a 9 actually here, this would be 5, 6, and 7. Well, the 6, no matter where it is, would be consecutive or would be adjacent to a 5 or a 7. and that would not be allowed. So this cannot be specifically 5, 6, 7, 9 or 3, 7, 8, 9. So it must be 4, 6, 8, 9. So we know this cannot contain a 5. This has to be 4, 6, 8, and 9. We know the 4 and the 9. Okay, so the 8 and the 9 cannot be consecutive. Therefore, or cannot be adjacent to each other. Therefore, they have to be in diagonal. So either this is 8, 9, or this is 8, 9. If this is 8, 9 here, that would mean this is 4 and 6. Okay, what's the remaining digits actually? Let's do that. It would be 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. Okay. Um if this is 8 and 9, this has to be 5 and 7 here. Okay, yeah, one thing, 1 can never be here, right? Because it would require this to be essentially 4 and 5, and that's not allowed at minimum. Or sorry, at maximum. And that can't work. So this can never have a 1. Um so 1 has to be one of these 3. We don't know which. Okay, if this is 8 and 9, that forces this to be 5 and 7, which would force these 3 to be 1, 2, and 3. Now, no matter what, though, if you have a 2 in any of these spots, 1 and 3 would essentially have to be next to it, adjacent to it, right? If this is 2, this would be 1 or 3, which would be adjacent to it, and be consecutive, which is not allowed. So this can never be 8, 9, then. So therefore, this has to be 4 and 6, which makes this 8 and 9. The 4 and the 6, again, so if this were 5, 7 specifically, that doesn't work. The remaining digits actually here have to be 4 through 9, right? Because either contains an 8, in which case it would have to be 4, 5, 6, 7 remaining, or 5, 6, 7, 9 remaining, or this is a 9, which would require the rest of the digits to be 5, 6, 7, 8. So either way, this is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this can never be 5 and 7 here, because then again, you run into the same problem of this being 1, 2, and 3. Therefore, 1 out of 2 or 3 has to be here, which means this is either 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is 2 through 7 also. Cannot contain a 4 or 6, because we already have a 4 and a 6 on the line. So this cannot be 5, because if it's 5, it's next to a 4 or a 6, and those are both consecutive with a 5. What else do we have? 5 is either here or it's here. I guess it could, no, it could be here and here. That's a possibility. Hmm. So 2 cannot be here. If 2 were here, then 1 would be consecutive, or would be adjacent to it. And that would be consecutive with it. Um, ah, one thing we know is, again, this has to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Either way, they both contain a 6. And all of these digits see this cell on the Renban. So this cannot be 6. This has to be a 4, which means this has to be specifically 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This 4 means this has to be a 6. This can't be 4. This is 5 through 9. Um, hmm. These both see 8 and 9, or these cells, right? This one of these is 8 or 9. This is the other 8 or 9. This being on the Renban sees both of these cells, and this one being on this cell sees both of being in normal Sudoku sees both of these cells. So therefore, 8 and 9 cannot be in either of these cells. Well, they can't be consecutive. So if this was a 6, either of these were a 6, they would be consecutive with each other, and they would be adjacent. So that's not allowed. So this cannot be 6. This has to be a 7, and this is a 5, which means this cannot be 5 or 7. And if this were 8 and 9, it would be consecutive with that digit, so that's not allowed. So therefore, this must be a 6, which means this can't be a 6. This can't be a 6 anymore. None of these can be 6, and this one can't be 6. On this Renban, we have to have a 6, right? The only possibilities are 4, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 6, 7, 8, 9. And they all require a 6. So this has to be a 6 then. This has to be 6. And since this is 6, that adds up with 7 and 9 to add up to 22. So this is 7. This is 9. This can no longer have a 7 here. It cannot be 8, 9. Okay, well, this is 9, so therefore this must be 8, which makes this a 9, which makes that an 8. 5 and 7 can't be next to the 6. Oh, yeah. 5 couldn't be either of these, actually. That's probably the clearest one we have. So therefore, 5 cannot be next to either of these because they would be 4 and 6. And 5 consecutive with them. So therefore, 5 must be here. Which means this can't be 5. This can't be 5 here. There's no longer 5 on this Renban, so 6 can no longer be here. Therefore, this is 1, 2, 3, or 4. And it has to be 1, 2, 3, 4 specifically. This can't be 8. So you can't have an 8 on the Renban. It must be 4, 5, 6, 7. So this can't be 9. This is 4, 5. This can't be 3. We need a 3 on this Renban. It can't be 3, though, because it's adjacent to a 4. So this has to be a 3, which means 3 cannot be any of these. 7 cannot be adjacent to the 8. Therefore, 7 can't be either of these. So 7 has to be one of these two. This can't be 2 because it's adjacent to the 3. Therefore, 2 has to be one of those two cells. The remaining digits in this row have to be 1, 2, 3, and 7. But if this is 2 or 3, then it's adjacent to it, so this can't be 2 or 3 specifically. Um, So if this is 1 and 2, that would mean this is 3 and 4. If this is not 1 and 2, it has to specifically be 3, 4. Therefore, this would be 2 and 1. Okay. This can't be 5 anymore, so this must be a 1, which means this can't be 1. This can't be 1. Oh, cannot be 1. Now we have a 2, 5, 7 triplet in row 4. Well, 5 and 7 have to be here. This can't be 7, though. We don't know where the 2 has to be, though. 3 cannot be next to either of these cells, or cannot be in one of these spaces. 3 and, well, 6 can't be, obviously. We know 6 has to be one of these 3 cells. 7 cannot be here, but it could be here. So 7 is one of these 2, which means 7 has to be one of those 2. Eight has to be one of these 3 cells. Okay, remaining digits here are 2, 3, 6, and 9. And this can't be 9, this can't be 6. This is 2, 3, 6, and 9. 6 cannot be here because it would be next to a 5. So 6 has to be one of these 2. Remaining digits here are 1, 2, 3, 7, and 9. These can't be 1 or 3. This can't be 2 because it's next to a 3. It's adjacent to a 3. And it can't be 7, so this must be 9, which means the rest of the box cannot contain a 9. These can't be 7 again because they would be next to adjacent to a 6 or 8. If one of these were 2, the problem is the other one would have to be 1 or 3, which is consecutive with 2, and they're both adjacent, so neither of these can be 2. So this has to be a 1, 3, 1, 3 pair, which eliminates 1 and 3 from the rest of the box, so this can't be 1 or 3. This has to be 2 or 7. Now, if this were 3, it would be adjacent to a 4 and a 5. And that's not allowed. 3 can't be adjacent to a 4, so this must be 1, which makes this a 3. What are the remaining digits here? It has to be 2, 4, 5, 7, or 9, and there's no 5. If this were a 2, that would force this to be a 3, and that would be adjacent to it. So this cannot be a 2 specifically. This can't be a 4 because it would be adjacent to a 5. This is 8, and then we also have a 6 here. The remaining digits are 2, 4, 5, and 7. No 5. The problem is if any of these are 7, it would have to be adjacent to a 6 or an 8. So 7 cannot be here. This is specifically 2, 4, 6, or 8. 1 has to be one of these 2, and this can't be 1. So this must be a 4. Since this is 4, this can no longer be 4 here. So this can't be 3 and 4. It has to be 1 and 2 here, which makes this a 3. 4 can no longer be here or here. This has to be a 2, 6, 8 triplet, which eliminates 2, 6, and 8 from the rest of the box and the row. So this can't be 2. This has to be a 7, 9 pair, which eliminates 7 and 9 from the rest of the box, so this must be 1. This can't be 4 anymore, so this is 5, which makes that a 4. This 5 means this can't be 5, so this is 2, which makes that 7, which makes that 5. This 2 means this has to be 7, and this 7 means this is a 2. This has to be 1, 2 pair, and this has to be 5. And now we're probably just using the adjacent cells. So 5 cannot be any of these, and it can't be here. So 5 has to be one of these two. Let's see. Um, hmm. What are the remaining digits here? It has to be 3, 4, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, 4 cannot be any of these. This can't be 7. This can't be 6 because it would be adjacent to a 5. The 4 is one of these three cells. So if this were a 3, that would be adjacent to a 4. So this can't be 3 here. Um, hmm. Remaining digits here. Actually, let's do this column. We have what? 2, 3, 5, and 7. So this could be 2, 3, 5, 7, but 5 and 7 specifically are ruled out because it's next to this, it's adjacent to the 6, and those are consecutive with it. Therefore, where's the 5 and 7 in this column? It has to be in these cells. Well, the 5 can only be here, so this is a 5, which makes that a 7, because the 7 can only be there, too. So this is 5, this is 7, which means 7 cannot be any of these cells. Therefore, 7 is one of those three cells. So if this were 6 or 8, it would be adjacent to a 7, and that's not allowed. So this can't be 6 or 8. The 6 cannot be next to the 5 or the 7, so neither of these can be 6. Therefore, the 6 has to be here. The remaining digit here has to be 2 or 3. The remaining digits here. So 9 has to be one of these two, and it can be either. 8 cannot be here, because it would be adjacent to a 9. It could be 9 with 1, 3, 4, but no 8. So 8 has to be one of these three. 8 cannot be here because it's adjacent to a 9. The remaining digits here are 1, 3, 4 with 8. So these could be 8. If this is 3, it would be adjacent to a 2, so this can't be 3 specifically. Remaining digits here. So 5 has to be one of these two. Well, 5 cannot be here because it would be adjacent to a 6, so it must be here. So this is a 5. Remaining digits now are 1, 2, 4, 5, 8. 4, 5, 8. This is 1, 2, 4, 5, 8. Well, this cannot be 8 because it would be adjacent to a 7. It cannot be 4 because it would be adjacent to a 5, so this can't be 5 anymore. This is 1 or 2. Therefore, 4 and 8 have to be here. If this were 2, this would be adjacent to a 3, so that's not allowed. This can't be 8 because it's adjacent to a 7. This can't be 4 because it's adjacent to a 5. Okay. What remaining digits do we have? This cannot be 3 because it's next to 1 or 2. Actually, it has to be next to 1 and 2 here, so therefore this can't be 3. This can't be 3 because of this 3, so 3 has to be one of these three cells, which means 3 is one of those three cells. Okay. Um... Hmm. This can't be 4 because it's next to a 5. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this adjacent cells thing because you have to go through a lot to be able to entangle it. Okay, so what are the remaining digits here? We have a 1, 2, 4, and 8. So this is 1, 2, 4, 8. This is 1, 2, 4, 8. This can't be 8 because it's adjacent to a 7. This can't be 4 because it's adjacent to a 5. And I think that's it. This can't be 8 because it's adjacent to a 7. This can't be 4 because it's adjacent to a 5. This can't be 1 or 2 because it would be adjacent to another 1 or 2, which would have to be the other one. So this can't be 1 or 2. This can't be 4 because it's adjacent to a 3. This can't be 2 because it's adjacent to a 3. So this is 1 or 5. Mm, hmm. What about here? The remaining digits here are 1, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9. Well, can't be 6 because of that 6. Can't be 8 because it's adjacent to a 7, but that's it. Hmm. This can't be 4 or 6. Ah, yeah. It can't be 4 or 6 because it's adjacent to a 5. This can't be 6. This can't be 6. This can't be 6. Where is the 6 in box 2? It has to be here. So this is a 6, which eliminates 6 from the rest of the row. 7 can't be here because it's next to a 6 then. So 7 has to be one of these two cells. Therefore, if this were 8, that would force that to be 7. So this cannot be 8 here. Okay. Therefore, one of these is a 6, but we're not sure which. So that's not that helpful. The remaining digits here. This can't be 2 because it's next to a 1. So this is 3 or 6. One of these 3 is 4. So because 4 can't be here and 4 can't be here. So where does... Okay, so one of these 3 is 4, which means this can't be a 4. So if 3 were here, it would be next to a 4. So this cannot be 3. Um... Hmm. What else do we have? Oh. Well, no, not necessarily. Hmm. What are the remaining digits here? It has to be 1, 3, 4, 8, 9. This can't be 4 because it's next to a 5. This can't be 6 because it's next to a 5. Hmm. Hmm. Uh. Hmm. Oh, if this is 8, Okay, 7 can only be one of these two cells. Therefore, if 8's in one of these two cells, it would be necessarily be next to a 7 or adjacent to a 7. So therefore, neither of these could be 8, which means 8 has to be one of these three cells. And then 8 has to be one of these two. So this cannot be 8. 8 is one of these two. That's fine. 8 is one of these two. 4 is one of those two. And similarly, one of these is a 5. So if this were not a 5, this would have to be a 5. So if this were 4, this would be 5, and therefore it would be adjacent to each other. So this can't be 4, which means 4 is one of these two, which means this can't be 4. Um, hmm. This cannot be 9 because of this 9. If this were 9, it would be next to one of the 8's, adjacent to one of the 8's, and that's not allowed because those are consecutive, therefore this can't be 9. Therefore 9 has to be one of these three, but we're not sure which. We know 4 actually has to be one of these two. So if 3 is in either of these two spots, it's problematic because then the 4 would be adjacent to it. So 3 cannot be either of these cells. Okay. This is still kind of convoluted. Maybe it's just I've done this rule set before, but maybe I'm just not very good at it. That could certainly be the case too. I don't see them very clearly or quickly. It's the same thing with like Knight's Move for me. I'm not good at spotting Knight's Move stuff at all, so it becomes hard for me to see it. Um, 4 has to be one of those two. That's not helpful though. Hmm. 5 has to be one of these three cells. I don't know what that helps us, but we know that's the case. Um, hmm. This cannot be 1 because if this were 1, actually, yeah, this can't be 1 because if this were 1, this would have to be 2 and it would be consecutive with each other. Hmm. Um, hmm. Hmm. This can't be 5. Okay, so if this is 5, that means 6 cannot be either of these. So then 6 has to be one of these 5, which is still pretty broad. Um, hmm. Yeah, I apologize. I just don't see these very fast at all. Um, hmm. Hmm. One of 5 or 7 has to be one of these 3 cells. We don't know which though. Hmm. Mm, this could be 8 if this is 7 and this is 4. Oh, this can't be 2. If this were 2, this would be 3, and then 4 would have to be here. So this cannot be 2. Okay, well. So 2 has to be either here or here. I don't know if that helps us much. Um, can this ever be 1? If this is 1, that forces this to be 3, which would force that to be 2, and therefore it would be consecutive. So this can never be 1 here then. Still pretty convoluted. If this is 4, it would have to be a 2 next to it, because again, you can't have 3 adjacent to it. So therefore, this would be... Oh, that's fine. 4, 2, 1, 8. That's fine. Can this ever be 3? If this is 3... Yeah, 3, 8, 4, 2. Hmm. So 2 could be with 8 here. And then this could be 4, 1. That's fine too. Uh, I don't like going through these. Anyways. If this is 3, this must be 9, which makes that an 8, which would force this to be 4. So 3 would be consecutive with 4 and adjacent to it, so that's not allowed. So this can never be 3. This has to be a 2, which makes this a 3, which makes that a 2. This has to be 1 then, which makes that a 2. This can't be 1 or 2, so this must be 4, which makes that an 8, which means this can't be 8. So this can't be 4 anymore, and this can't be 2 anymore. This can't be 8. This has to be then 1, which makes that a 4. So these can't be 1. This has to be 3 or 9. Which means this can't be 3 or 9. This can't be 4 because it's next to a 3. This can no longer be 4. So one of these 2 is a 4. This can't be 1. And it can't be 2 because that would be adjacent to a 1. So this must be an 8. Which means this can't be 8. This can't be 8. Which means 8 has to be one of these 2 cells. So therefore, and this can't be 2, so this is 1. Which means this can't be 1. This can't be 9 or 3 or 9. Because it has to be a 6-8 pair. Because those are the only places for 6 and 8 now in row 2. Or actually in box 2. Therefore, this can never be 7. If this is 7, it's consecutive with both 6 and 8, and it's adjacent to it, so this can't be 7. Therefore, this must be a 7 here. And now we have a 3-9-3-9 pair in box 1, which eliminates 3 and 9 from the rest of the box, so this can't be 9. This has to be a 4. This 7 means this can't be 7, so this is 9. This can't be 9, so this is 7. This can't be a 2. Either of these are fine. This is you have a 3-9-3-9 pair in box 2, which eliminates 3 and 9 from the rest of the box, so this must be a 2. Which means these can't be 2. We have a 3-9-3-9 pair in column 4, which eliminates 3 and 9 from the rest of the column, so this becomes a 1-4-8 triplet. Which eliminates 1, 4, and 8 from the rest of the box, which means this can't be 1, 4, 8. So therefore, this must be a 5, which makes that a 7, which makes that a 2. The 5 cannot be next to a 6, so therefore this must be 3, which makes that 9, which makes that a 6. This can no longer be 3, this can no longer be 5. Well, that forces this to be a 5. This can't be 3, therefore this must be a 3. 3 can't be next to a 4, so this cannot be 4. We have a 1-8-1-8 pair in column 4, which eliminates 1 and 8 from the rest of the column, so this must be a 4. This cannot be 4. Where is the 4 in row 8? It has to be here. So this is 4, which makes this 1, which makes that an 8. This 1 means this can't be 1, so this is an 8, which makes that a 1. Remaining digits here are 2, 4, and 6. They can be 2, 4, and 6. 4 cannot be here or here, so 4 must be here. We have a 2, 6, 8 triplet in column 1 and a 3, 9 pair in column 1, which eliminates 2, 6, 8, and 3 and 9 from the rest of the column. Therefore, this is 7. The remaining digits here are 1 and 9. This has to be 8 because that's the only one left. And 8 cannot be adjacent to a 9, so this must be 1, which makes this a 9. This 8 means this has to be a 6. This can't be 6. The 2 cannot be consecutive adjacent to a 3, so this must be 6, which makes that a 2, which makes that an 8, which makes that a 2. This 6 means this has to be 8, which makes that a 6. 3, okay, so this cannot be 9 because it's next to it, it's adjacent to an 8, so this is 3, which makes that 9. This 3 means that has to be 9, and this is just normal Sudoku, so that's a 3, this is a 9. That's the 3 in the corner. We celebrate because we know we are done. Ugh, that took a while. Yeah, it's not hard, but it's just, it takes a while to basically traverse the adjacent cell one. To be blunt, I'm not the biggest fan of, because of this, right? It takes so long to actually traverse through. It's the same way I'm not the biggest fan of Knight's move. I will do those, but I will do this one also, but I'm not the biggest fan of it because for me, it's basically just having to traverse every possibility and then basically see what gets eliminated and then basically do finish that. And I guess for me, it's a lot more busy work because it's just I don't see these very clearly. So it's I don't know. Maybe other people can see it better than I do. So for them, it probably is much easier, much quicker. But for me, it's not that easy for me. So, anyways, I hope you had a better time in this solve, and I'll see you next time on Frank Puzzles. Take care.